Good afternoon. Happy Saturday. You're here with Our World, Our Power with Lady Pauline and it's the Honorable Mayor of Southern Boulevard. And you're listening to Our World Media Network on WGJSradio.com. And you can also hear us on iHeartRadio and Spotify. Let's start, Glenn.
Well, we have a really exciting guest today, Ms. Tricia Taitt, and she's the CEO of The Art of Money Matters. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you guys for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And let's start it off right away. So tell us a little bit about your business.
All right, so the Art of Money Matters is an outsourced accounting and CFO services company. What that means is we provide accounting and financial consulting to small and mid-sized businesses that are at the growth stage of their business. And we review the numbers, we analyze the numbers, we help CEOs make strategic decisions to move their business forward and to grow their business forward. We have been around for about 5 years. I have been a finance professional for 21 years in total. And the first 8 years I spent on Wall Street at Merrill Lynch and Citigroup. And then I took about 5 years to detour and follow a passion of mine. And about 5 years ago, I started this company with the intention to really help small and mid-sized business owners get to the high 6 and 7 figure level and really forecast their future and growth.
Oh, that's very interesting. So, are there any specific types of businesses that you work with specifically?
So I'd like to answer that question this way. I see there are 5 stages of growth of a business. There's a startup phase. There's the sort of success phase where you're gathering more customers, you're increasing your income, cash flow still might be an issue. There's a stable phase, there's a growth phase, and there's a maturity phase. So right where your business is established, been around for a few years, you have some traction, you have revenue, it's trickling down into profits. So you have you might have hired a couple of employees. At that point, then business owners really want to look at their numbers in a different way so they can make strategic decisions to expand into the future, into the growth area of their business. So I usually work with entrepreneurs that are in that stage of their business and they want more from their numbers. They want someone to forecast the numbers. They want someone to oversee their bookkeeper, make sure the accounting is right. They want to be able to access funding for growth. And usually my clients are service businesses versus product-based businesses. And a lot of them happen to be women entrepreneurs.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, we love that. We love that.
I really like that very much.
So what are some of the problems that businesses have in this growth stage? I would imagine getting access to capital is one of the issues that they have in this growth stage.
Yeah, well, so growth requires cash, and a lot of business owners miss that point. And so they try to acquire growth by hiring more people or adding on more resources like technology or space or increase their operations. And all of that requires cash. So a lot of times business owners that are in that growth stage weren't really paying attention to their cash flow as minutely as they should be on a day-to-day basis. So one of the things that we do with all of our clients is we do rolling cash flow projections so that we know where there is potential for cash shortages. Another thing that pops up during the growth phase is that you have to also think about like your capacity, right? So
Yes.
do you need specific type of employees? Do you need new technology? But let's go back to the one of the points you made, which was capital, right? So a lot of business owners need capital at various stages, but definitely at the growth stage. And some of the challenges that they face with capital is twofold. So we saw this in the pandemic. On the one side, if you don't have a relationship with a banker or a lender at a CDFI or any other sort of alternative funding, it is hard to build that relationship when you really need it. You want to build a lending relationship before you need it. That's the first thing. The second thing is a lot of business owners are not prepared for the process. Bankers want to know that you could pay them back. Any lender, even the SBA, wants to know that you could pay them back. So you have to show some decent financials. And a lot of business owners don't have their financial statements ready to go. They're either waiting for a CPA who might be 6 months backlogged, and has hundreds of clients, so they don't have access to their own numbers. And internally, a lot of times they don't have bookkeepers or someone that has accounting knowledge to keep their books up to date on a regular basis so that they can just pull the financial reports and pull the documents that they need. And so that's where we step in as an outsourced CFO. When you get to that level, you might have a CPA as well as a bookkeeper, but your outsourced CFO is really like your strategic right-hand financial partner. And so with our clients, whenever they're going for capital, we make sure that their books are clean, up to date. We can pull financial statements. And then I am in the room with them and the banker and the lender to translate whatever conversation is happening. That's the third part. The third part is you have to be ready to answer the questions the way the lender needs to hear it. And if you don't have that accounting and financial background, you can't really translate or understand what they're saying and say it in the way that they need to hear it.
You know, I'm going to ask you how. I mean, obviously, this is going to be per the business, but how much time does the cleanup need to take place sometimes, just on an average? Because it sounds like that's a key piece before you can actually get to the bankers, that you want to make sure that the books are in order, you've got all the statements are clean and clear, and then it sounds like you also make sure that they're presented in the right categories, the right buckets inside of the accounting.
Right. That's exactly right. A lot of people don't invest in the financial and the accounting side of their business. They just kind of relinquish the reins to their CPA or maybe even their brother-in-law or some family member that's handling the books, and they don't pay attention to it. As CEO, you have a fiduciary responsibility to your business, and you should, even if you don't understand it, you're not a numbers person, you should be paying attention to who's managing your accounting on a regular basis. And when I say a regular basis, if you're a starter business, let's say you're under 250K, or maybe you don't have that many transactions on a regular basis, maybe your books need to be done quarterly at minimum. Okay. But if you're a larger size business and you have hundreds of transactions between credit cards and bank accounts, and you're, borrowing and lending money, there's a lot of movement going on in your bank account and around your business monthly. Minimum, the books need to be done monthly. And I find that a lot of business owners are trying to do it themselves. If it is not your thing, find a bookkeeper that knows accounting, not just accounting software, but find a bookkeeper that knows accounting to at least do the books on a monthly basis, because that is the foundation. You can't pull financial statements out of the air if you don't have the accounting accurate and up to date. And that's what a lot of people found it difficult to apply for PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and take advantage of the COVID-19 funding resources that were available in a quick and expeditious way, because their books weren't up to snuff. So they had to do the back work. And that back work, if you don't invest in the financial and the accounting side of your business up front, it's going to cost you down the road. Don't wait till the end of the year and try to get someone to do it. It's going to be expensive. So I always recommend people do it at least quarterly. But if you're a larger business, higher six figures plus, and you have a lot of transactions, minimum monthly.
Now, excuse me, sorry, Glenn. What if you're a startup business, and we know that 5 to 7 years is the sort of the time frame, if a business is going to succeed or fail. What are some of the pitfalls have you seen with that type of situation as far as a startup business and their paperwork? Maybe they don't have any
Yes.
paperwork. What's the first steps to establish that paperwork? Could you tell us?
So I'll say it on a general level, and then I'll just speak to the financial aspects of things.
Okay.
So at the general level, you want to have a conversation with a business attorney and your CPA. So those are two very important conversations because the legal person will help you figure out what is the right entity. No, sorry, let me back up. The CPA, because they're probably doing your personal taxes, they can help you figure out what's the appropriate entity from a tax planning standpoint. So once you have that information, whether you should be a sole proprietor, single member LLC, multi-member LLC, S Corp, C Corp, your CPA is your go-to. And then when I say a CPA, I mean certified public accountant. All
Okay.
CPAs are accountants, but not all accountants are CPAs. So I recommend you go to your CPA first, and then you go to your lawyer, and the lawyer can help you walk through the process of actually legalizing the entity. And if it's you and a partner or a group of people, you also want to have an operating agreement. Then there's the official process of going to the county clerk's office and making sure your name is available and actually registering
Yes.
it if it's a LLC and all of those things. Now, another thing that is really helpful, and this is for people who are in New York, or maybe it's available in other cities and states, but the Queens Economic Development, the QEDC, any sort of EDCs, Economic Development Centers, a lot of SBDCs, Small Business Development Centers, a lot of these small business centers can help you with the paperwork part and to register an employee identification number, which is an EIN, which you will always want to get an EIN separate from your social security number, so you can use that number for official purposes. So if you need a bit of hand holding, I remember when I started my business, even though I came from corporate and I have an MBA and all of these things, it was a little nerve wracking to start the business and I didn't know all the steps. So I did go to the Queens Economic Development Center and they really helped walk me through the process. But those are kind of the steps from a general standpoint. From a financial standpoint, when you're starting your business, you want to make sure you have a separate business bank account that is separate from your personal. That is one huge thing I find from a lot of startups is they're commingling. They're like, it's my money anyway.
Right.
So why do I need to separate the bank account? So you have to act like if you want to keep your entity separate from you, the person, so that if anyone were to sue you, they don't come after your personal assets, then you have to treat the business as a separate entity. It has its own money, it has its own income, it has its own expenses, and then you pay yourself a salary or what's called an owner's draw if you're not on payroll within your own business. You draw money out of that business bank account and you put it into your personal bank account. So I see that a lot. I would say that besides not having your books up to date and complete and accurate is probably the biggest thing I see, the biggest issue I see with startups.
Okay.
We're going to take a station break and pay some bills, and we're going to come back. And the question I think we're going to come back with is, at what point in time do you have a treasurer or a controller? We'll be right back with Tricia Taitt.
I don't think that many kids in my son's school even do it.
He makes fun of his friend who vapes.
He would never try it.
She's into soccer.
She's on the honor roll.
She's just not the type.
No way.
No way.
No way.
No way, my kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping. Maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
Type 2 diabetes can have a big impact on your life, but how can it be prevented? Well, the first step is knowing if you have prediabetes, a serious medical condition that puts you at high risk for type 2 diabetes. 1 in 3 American adults has prediabetes, but more than 80% don't know they have it. The good news is, prediabetes can be reversed. And for many people, healthy changes in their daily routine can make a big difference. Take the 1-minute risk test today at doihaveprediabetes.org.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind,
You're really gonna like it.
I hope so. Yeah. I know this road is there for me. There is a love waiting.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
The waist down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
We come from where most.
I feel like mental health for me is a thing that doesn't really get talked about. It's harder for us to express our feelings because we're taught young to bottle them up. My name is Taitt Chukwudubemwigwe. I'm an Igbo boy from the southwest side of Houston, Texas, and I'm here to talk with Muhammad and Jordan about emotions, feelings, mental health. And you know what I'm saying? We're just gonna let the spirit move.
I'm Jordan. I'm 12 years old.
I'm Muhammad. This is my stepson. I just call him my son.
As a father, it's your responsibility to lead your children into being mentally healthy, emotionally healthy.
Sometimes when I cry, I won't know how I'm feeling or why I'm crying.
I just grew up never feeling like it was okay to cry. And so he really forced me to have to reconnect with the kid that didn't get to cry.
That's beautiful. In the society that we were brought up in, it's very hard on little black boys. So you have to navigate feelings and emotions so the world don't get you.
We had to learn why cage birds sing, but we fly, even though they poison us down. We don't cry, we gon' take our piece of the pie.
Welcome back. We're here with Tricia Taitt, the CEO of The Art of Money Matters. And we're in the discussion around when is a perfect time to get a treasurer or a controller. And just for our audiences who may have come in a little late, give us the phases of growth of, not a growth of business, the business phases, the startup.
You know.
Okay. So I slightly misspoke earlier, but it's the 5 stages of growth of a business. And when I'm speaking, I usually, because the most frequently asked question I get is, who do I need at what stage, or who do I need in my accounting financial team, and what should I be doing? So so the first stage is startup. The second one is survival. The third one is success. The fourth one is growth, and the fifth one is maturity. Okay. And so you asked the question of when do you need a treasurer or controller? So treasurers are usually the fiduciary of a not-for-profit board.
Okay.
And the treasurer, because I was recently treasurer of the National Association of Women Business Owners NYC chapter. I just rolled off in June.
Congratulations.
And thank you. When you're in a nonprofit, there is usually a director of finance or a VP of finance or a CFO or whoever that financial senior person is within the organization that is managing the financial aspects of the business. Now, whenever the board meets, that financial person is preparing typically board reports, some sort of financial reporting that they give to the treasurer, and then the treasurer is responsible for reporting that to the board. And usually the CFO attends because they know the nitty-gritty behind the numbers.
Right.
And so if people have additional questions, then your financial director is there alongside the treasurer to, make sure they answer the questions and to speak to the bank account. And if you have long loans or contracts, to speak to those kind of nitty gritty items. Okay. So that's not for profits. In a for-profit business, business owners typically start off with a certified public accountant, a CPA, because everybody needs to pay Uncle Sam and everybody has to pay taxes, or at least they should be concerned about paying taxes. As soon as you make it official that you're starting a business, that's why it's important to keep the accounting and the records appropriate so that you can report your taxes. So people start off with a CPA. As your business starts to grow and you start to get customers and you have regular transactions, income flowing in, cash going out, you start to build a line of credit. Maybe you have a credit card for the business. So now you as the business owner might have been trying to keep track of the inflow and the outflow of the money, either using Excel or using QuickBooks Online or FreshBooks or some other accounting software. And you get to the point where you're like, I have too many hats. I can't wear this hat. And furthermore, I'm not a numbers person. I don't really know the accounting. I don't feel comfortable doing it. That's when you hire a bookkeeper. A bookkeeper is like a junior accountant. They should have some level of accounting knowledge, but they may not have a master's in accounting or a CPA. And then they should also know the accounting software that they're going to use. So the bookkeeper is keeping the records in line on a regular basis, making sure things are categorized in the right buckets, whether it's income, expense, asset, liabilities, or equity. The next level then gets a little murky because you can have a controller or you can have a CFO once you get to like the beginning of that growth phase. So it just depends on the complexity of your business. And I'll tell you what the difference is. You want to hire a CFO usually sits above everyone else in the accounting and finance department and HR, right?
Okay.
So
right.
the CFO sits at the right hand of the CEO. When you're in a smaller business, let's say high 6 figures, 7 figures, the CFO is taking the financial reports that the bookkeeper pulls from QuickBooks and is analyzing that, as well as if you're a product-based business, they're looking at your Shopify and your Square, and they're helping you understand not just cash flow, but how to improve for profitability, how to increase the value of your business. They're helping you figure out inventory. Should you be slowing down your inventory? What's profitable? What projects are profitable versus what products are profitable? So they're helping you make those like really strategic decisions on where you should be allocating your time and money and investing forward. They're even looking at numbers like the utilization of your employees. All of these might sound like, kind of a little more advanced sort of concepts, but that's what the CFO is doing. The reason a controller would come into play, a controller is like your highest level on the accounting side of things, and they're really the quality control of accounting. Here's where I could see a controller being necessary to oversee a bookkeeper as well as having a CFO, because in manufacturing companies, when there's a lot going in and out, there's shipping, there's inventory, there's a warehouse. Like when your business is that kind of complicated, if you're a supplier, so a lot of MWBEs that I've met have like HVAC companies, they sell plumbing supplies, contractors. That's when like what's called cost accounting or job costing, for every job you do, you want to know the cost of that job compared to how much you're making. Like when those minute details are important and the accounting is critical, that's when like really a controller is needed, because a controller should have an advanced degree in accounting and really know how to do that stuff. And then they would work in a symbiotic relationship with the CFO, and the CFO is looking at like everything feeds into financial reports, and the CFO is analyzing that at a higher level. And so that's why for small businesses, you don't need a CFO full-time. You need a CFO sort of part of the time, maybe once a month or twice a month, depending on the complexity of your business.
I have a question, Ms. Taitt. One of the question is, now what happens if you have both businesses? You have the for-profit and you have a non-for-profit. Now explain how that will balance itself out, and what do you need for both? Or can you use the same accountant for both companies?
That is a complicated question.
I just wanted to know.
Yeah, it's a complicated question because some people like to try to use the tax exempt status of the not for profit for reasons they shouldn't be using it. A not for profit is a corporation.
Right.
Plain and simple. It's a corporation like any other corporation. But it is treated with tax exempt status because you are supposed to be fulfilling a mission. So your bottom line, let me think about how I say this, because a lot of not-for-profit organizations feel like they can't make profit. That is not what not-for-profit means. Not-for-profit means you should be making profit, but that profit is plowed back into accomplishing the mission of the organization. So you should have a profitable not-for-profit, but it needs to plow the money back into the programming or hiring people for programming or accomplishing the mission. For-profit business, their purpose of making profit is to pay the investors. And if you have like a single member LLC or just you're the 100% investor. So it's all about, building up your pocket. Now, if you have two different companies, a for-profit and a not-for-profit, I would definitely say have a bank account for each. Keep each entity separate. Keep the accounting and the books separate. They report differently. For a not-for-profit, you have to report an annual 990, right? And those financial statements are called something different, right? So I would say have separate bank accounts, separate books and records. You can have the same CPA. However, when you're working in a not-for-profit, you want to make sure that your CPA knows not-for-profit accounting and reporting.
So there is a difference. There is a different type of accounting that is being done.
The accounting standards are being followed, but weirdly enough, I don't know why it happened. So like the income statement is not called an income statement on the not-for-profit side. It's called, I forget what it is. Okay. But like the balance sheet is not called a balance sheet. It's statement of something else, right? So the statements are called something distinct, and the way sometimes they need to be presented is different. So for example, if you have a not-for-profit, a lot of your revenue might be either contributed revenue or earned revenue. So you need to break those two things out. Contributed is people are giving money to you, state, federal, individual. Earned is you run programming and you generate some income. You have some admissions or tickets or something like that. And then some of that revenue in some not-for-profits is restricted, temporarily restricted, permanently restricted, designated, like all of these other terms.
Now,
when you're in a for-profit,
excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When you're doing fundraising, because you mentioned different types of money coming in. What about when people do fundraising?
That would be that would be contributed, right?
Yeah. Is that
so
what's that under?
When you're doing fundraising, that's considered contributed because you didn't earn it. Somebody gave you the money. But when that's another thing. So some organizations or some organizations that contribute money to not-for-profits, let's say the state gives to an FQHC or a charter school or something like that, right? Some of those organizations require special reporting, which is called fund reporting. And not all CPAs know that stuff. Not all I don't know that stuff. So if you have a not-for-profit, you want to make sure that whoever is on your accounting or financial team, from CPA all the way to treasurer, understands that not-for-profit accounting.
Well, that's very interesting. I'm glad you made that very clear, because a lot of times people are not aware of the differences, and they're not aware until there's a problem that arises. And then they say, oh, I didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to take another break. We'll be right back. We're going to pay some of our our bills. We'll be right back with Tricia Taitt.
We'll be right back. But first, are you a small business owner looking for solutions? TMI Partners is a business solution company offering operational, branding, and financial solution. For only $9.99 a month, your company will be assigned a personal business advisor. Well, that's right, only $9.99 per month, no contract, and you're on your way. Call TMI at 347-234-5304. That's 347-234-5304. Or visit their website at tmium.com. Tomorrow, the world will know your business. Is that it, guys? Hello? Did I do good?
Hi, this is attorney Stephen G. James. We've been practicing law at this law firm for over 30 years. I'm a former assistant prosecutor in Kings County and currently a defense attorney to serve you better. We work harder to serve you better. So just call us for the lawyers you can trust. 646-905-9000. 646-905-7001. We're located on Sutphin Boulevard, right near Hillside here in Jamaica, Queens, New York, for over 30 years serving the community. The law firm of Stephen G. James. Thank you.
My daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops.
Well, welcome back. We are with Tricia Taitt, the CEO of The Art of Money Matters. And what we were just discussing is the complexities of financing. And it's not just about accounting, but it's how you apply the accounting, so that there are different areas, different expertise needed, and of course we have our expertise with us today, Ms. Tricia Taitt. So tell us tell us what your area of expertise is and what's your sweet spot in this huge financial arena.
So I'm a finance person. I went to Wharton undergrad at UPenn for finance.
Wow,
Worked in finance.
That's a wonderful school, Wharton. Come on, you should be telling people about that. Very, very nice.
Thank you very much. It's funny. As a first generation American, I didn't grow up knowing all that Wharton was until I was applying to schools. But I went there for finance, and then I worked in finance first on a sales and trading floor at Merrill Lynch. And then I went back for my MBA, and the intention was to work at someplace cool like Disney or the Gap in their corporate finance department, doing a different kind of finance. So that meant like not on the trading floor and not sales, but looking at spreadsheets, which I'm a math nerd. So I figured math translated to finance. And then I ended up working at Citigroup, and I ended up working for CFOs of different divisions within Citigroup. And what CFOs do is they take those. So I'm going to just give a little bit of history. Accounting is the foundation of all the numbers stuff, right? And so when you have these building blocks and you put every transaction in a particular category according to accounting standards, now all of those transactions together come together and create a story within financial reports. And the financial reports, the most common ones are your P&L, your income statement, which is your income statement, your balance sheet. By the way, I'm talking from a for-profit lens right now because the not-for-profit is called something else. So income statement, your balance sheet, which is the most critical financial statement because it includes the income statement as well as what's called the cash flow statement. So those three financial statements are the most important. So a finance person, where finance comes in, is finance is the next step after all of the accounting. So financial people look assuming all the accounting is right, we look at the financials and we basically read the tea leaves. We tell the story behind the numbers. And I love nothing better. It might sound like a nerd, I don't care, but I love nothing better than to look at different spreadsheets and figure out. I can tell from looking at financial reports what is going on wrong in the business, or at least it directs me towards what part of the business is not doing well. So I'll give you a perfect example of that. A client of mine was a $13 million business, and they were trying to apply for $1 million loan. Now you would assume $13 million, $1 million should be like not a problem.
Right.
They couldn't get any more than $500,000. They were a lighting production company, and they had a lot of equipment within their warehouse.
Sure.
So the issue was their balance sheet, which is where you show the value of your business, like all the things you own in the business and all your liabilities. It wasn't showing strong enough. It didn't look like their financial reports didn't prove to the bankers that this business, which had $13 million in revenue, was making 13, can actually pay back the bank, right? Because revenue doesn't always translate into cash. And so when I looked at their financial reports, I said, wait a minute, where is the value of everything in your warehouse? Like, where is that reflected on your financial statements? And they were like, and this is something that people get in trouble with, they didn't show the value of it. Instead, what they did is they depreciated it, which means they expensed the cost of all of the things in their warehouse so that they can reduce their profits so they can pay less taxes. And sometimes trying to minimize your taxes and not pay Uncle Sam works against you when you're going for a loan, line of credit, when you're going for a funder, because you're not showing the profits, you're not showing a strong balance sheet, and sometimes it works against you. So every year when you talk to your CPA or your person on your financial team, one thing I recommend business owners to do is tell them what your goals are for the next 3 years. If your goal is to go for a lender, it goes counterintuitive to trying to reduce your taxes in a particular year.
So in other words, the book value of the equipment showed it far less than the actual market value.
It didn't show it all.
Okay.
It didn't show it all because they expensed it. It's like, think about your computer, right? If you buy an Apple computer, it might be $2,000, right? Mm-hmm. So if you make income of $3,000 and you fully expense this computer of $2,000, you show profit only on $1,000, right? Which means your taxes are probably lower versus if you don't fully expense it and you let the value of this, because it depreciates just like a car. If you let the value of this sit on the balance sheet, you won't be able to use the $2,000. You might use $500 a year for the life of the laptop, right? But that means that your profit is going to be higher, which means you're going to pay more taxes. So you have to balance out and figure out when you have assets or value in your business, you have to figure out, work with your CPA, your tax strategist, to figure out what you want to do, how you want to play it. Do you want to play it as this is making my business look valuable? Or do you want to play it as I'm going to use all these deductions, expense it, and make my profits look as small as possible so that I don't have to pay much taxes? That is another thing that happened with a lot of business owners, why they didn't get Paycheck Protection Program, because they weren't showing profits for years, or they were showing losses, and they weren't able to get that money. I'm sorry, I kind of went like really in depth, and you just asked me a question about.
No. That's perfect. That's perfect, because see what you're pointing to. You're underlying the skill set that's needed, like yourself, to come in and to look at the books and then ask the questions. What are your future plans? Because if your future plans are just to reduce taxes, then okay, this might be the strategy. But if you want to grow, which is one of your expertise, you come in the growth company and provide them how to present themselves if they want to access capital, then certainly this depreciation on the books is not going to be a good look for them, and it's not going to be what the bankers are looking for. So you're actually directing folks, the company, the CEO of the company, you're directing them on what kind of strategic planning that they need to do from a financial standpoint. And there are probably other areas of strategic planning that the company has to rely on, but the finances are probably the most important, especially if you're looking for access to capital.
And another thing, Ms. Taitt, you were saying that this here has to be done in the beginning of the business, or when you start your own business, most likely.
Not necessarily in the beginning of the business, but every year when you speak to your CPA, first of all, don't just go to your CPA because you need your taxes done.
Okay, that's what most people do.
Right. You should have a tax plan. You should have a tax planning conversation.
Okay, what does that entail? Tax planning conversation? I don't think I've had one.
Well, if you're a business owner, even if you're not a business owner, like you might want to buy a home or a third home or have a child or retire early or start a retirement fund, right? Okay. All of those things have tax implications. And so when you're speaking to a certified public accountant, have a conversation about, next year I'm thinking X. What should I be doing now so that it's helpful to my taxes? As a business owner, I would say, circling back to that example I gave you of that $13 million business, that CEO was pretty savvy. He grew a huge business, but he just didn't know that. He didn't know that thing, right? And so that's where our expertise as an outsourced CFO, as a financial consultant comes in, and I am his strategic partner. So then, he can take action and say to his facilities manager, I need you to look at every piece of equipment, find out the value of it, so we could work with our CPA and figure out how we could get it back on the balance sheet so we could get this $1 million. Right? That's how I come in, and that's the role that I play. But I think that every business owner, and this is again why I say that every business owner should have a certified public accountant, not just an accountant or someone that knows tax law, so that they can have a tax planning conversation every year.
Okay. That's very interesting. I hope our listeners heard that because I know a lot of people, young people, are starting businesses, and I don't really think they have that type of information at hand.
Well, what I would say to people who are starting businesses, definitely surround yourself with people that are knowledgeable about these things. The weakest part of many businesses I come into, whether they are starting, $500,000, 1 million, 15 million in revenue, is that they don't invest money in hiring the right people. They only have, if you have a budget of like $200, you're going to get what you pay for. Somebody that doesn't have knowledge to give you the right direction.
It always comes down to you get what you pay for, huh?
You get what you pay for. Everybody invests in, sales and marketing is important, right? Everybody invests in social media and Instagram and all of that. Now, how do you know how much you should be budgeting for your sales and marketing? Who tells you that? The accounting and financial person.
Okay. We got it.
All right. I definitely got it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to apply that to myself.
I get really passionate about this stuff. I'm sorry.
No. It's great. It's so important when you're managing a business, and it really is no different than managing yourself. Those are the kinds of things you want to look at your tax implications. You want to know how your financials are presented, so that you can, maybe, as said earlier, you're going to buy a second home, a third home, or you're going to invest in a business, create a investment, investment portfolio. I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit. I'm going to ask you, what is it like being a woman in finance? Because I know finance has been pretty much dominated by men, and probably white men, I'm going to say. What is it being a black woman in finance with all this skill set? What kind of challenges do you have?
That's a fun question. Well, first of all, like I said, I was a math nerd. So anything with numbers I was into. You can't take away someone's smart and intellect and knowledge. Now, when you get into the professional world, what people can do is manipulate how far you go with that knowledge.
Yes.
So you have to play a different game. And a lot of times, people of color in general, women of color as well, we focus on the work hard versus the work smart. And we also focus on the work instead of the relationship building. So I learned pretty early on. I went to boarding school for high school at Andover, which is a predominantly white school. And that's the first time that I went to school with mostly white people. And I started to realize from there and figure out how to navigate as one of few within a world that's majority Caucasian. And we're all people. We all have things that we like, that we share in common. We might not be the same race, but women gather on shoes and pocketbooks. Right?
True.
Or when you get older, your kids. So build relationships with people in your job. If you're in finance, build relationships with first maybe the women in your job, and then some of the men, because like I love football. A lot of men love football. We end up talking about the game, right?
Okay.
Find the things. I started to find the things that mattered to other people and having the conversations. Now, I would just say I have a difficult time of mixing business and pleasure. So I love dance. I love dance and performing, and I've been performing since I was, younger. And I never brought my dance life to my finance trading floor life, because they'd be like, what are you doing? It's like two different worlds, right? So we never talked about my performances at the Apollo, but I would select what I talked about, and I'd make sure I have something that's relatable to someone else. So you definitely want to make sure that you build friends, partners, especially with the higher ups, because they're in the rooms where you are not, in the places where decisions are being made, in places where people are talking about you. And I learned over time through Andover, through Wharton, how to navigate, still be myself and feel comfortable. It took a while to feel comfortable being who I am as a Black woman in our atmosphere, and still be a human relating to other human beings, and also being very strategic about who you know and who knows you.
I like to piggyback. I like to piggyback off of that. Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to piggyback as to who inspired you when you was growing up, because you are an amazing young lady, and I know you said you love math, and I was just curious to, when as a little girl, who inspired you?
Many people inspired me. I would say my grandmother inspired me. I was telling someone, I'm working on writing a manuscript for a book. Crazy, feels crazy. And they were like, what is your story, your inspirational brand story? And I was thinking of these moments that helped me figure out what was my purpose. And what I feel like my purpose is financial empowerment. And now it's financial empowerment for business owners, and more specifically, financial empowerment for women business owners. But one of the people that inspired me, I would say, is my grandmother. And it's like not until I was older, I realized all of these things were being taught to me without, like, not intentionally, but subconsciously. So she was the first kind of bookkeeper that I knew my understanding is she came to this country, started in a room, built herself up to own a brownstone. And she used to have this mantra: for every dollar you make, you save 60 cents and you live off of 40 cents. So she taught that to her daughters, who my mom, some of you may know. And watching my mom and the women in my family, especially on the maternal side of my family, everyone owned their own stuff. And we were talking about insurance, and they were like, you have to get a 401k as soon as you start your job, and long-term insurance, and, you know, all of these different things, like having investments and portfolios. So we were talking about all of that stuff, or they were talking all that stuff around me. And then when I went to boarding school at 13, I was away from home. So I had to have a bank account. So a 13-year-old I was managing a checkbook at 13. Like, who's doing that at 13? And then at 18, my mother put me on a credit card with her. So it was my name and her name. And people were like, are you crazy? You gave your teenager a credit card? Because the bill went to her. But everything that I bought, I always asked before I purchased it. But her intention was to start me building credit at 18. So all these things were like happening around and behind me. And it wasn't until I was 20 something and I was teaching a financial literacy course for adults, like older than me. And there was some basic financial things that they did not know. And I was super surprised. I was like, don't they know this? Like, and it was a moment of like humility, because then I realized, oh, these women were teaching me this stuff. And my dad happens to be a CPA, but everyone was teaching me this stuff subconsciously over time. And not everyone gets that. And I'm like, there should be a world where it's a life skill. Knowing how to manage knowing how to manage your finances personally is a life skill. And when you are a business owner, what you do in your personal life, you're going to do in your business life.
So true. So true. So we're coming down to the end of the wire here. Where would you like to see yourself and your business in the next 5 years?
Ooh, I love that. So I've been trying to figure that out during this pandemic. So I'm going to be changing the name of my company to be all encompassing of my performance self, as a dancer who loves dance and has been on a Broadway show, and my finance self. I will be continuing to help establish businesses, 6, 7, 8-figure businesses, and corporations. Advance small businesses and help them grow to mid-sized businesses. But I also want to, because this is the work smarter part, I'm also building a course and a system whereby I help predominantly women entrepreneurs figure out how to not only run a successful, profitable business, but also pay themselves what they deserve. One of the biggest issues for business owners, they don't pay themselves consistently, and they're training, running a business, and they never did the math to figure out if their idea was a viable or profitable one. So I am hoping to build that productized piece of knowledge, that system where there comes in a course, a series of courses, whatever it is, and roll that out and make my multi-millions.
Okay.
That's great. Now, how can people get a hold of you?
Oh, so our company name is artofmoneymatters.com. So that's ARTOFMONEYMATTERS.com. It's Art of Money Matters also on Instagram. And my name is Tricia Taitt, TRICIAM, Taitt, TAITT, and I can be found on LinkedIn. So yeah, those are the various ways that you can find me and us, our company.
That's wonderful. I mean, it's been a wonderful experience having you on Our World, Our Power. When Glenn told me about you, I said, I have to meet this young lady. And especially with the knowledge that you have, I'm going to be calling you personally.
Thank you. Make sure you got the budget.
Well. So that means you want to get paid. But we're not for profit. But we're not for profit. That doesn't work.
Right. Remember when I said not for profit doesn't make you don't make profit.
That's right. That's good. I like to leave it at that. I like to leave it on that positive note. And you've been listening to Our World, Our Power here on the Our World Media Network, WGJSradio.com. Don't forget to follow us on our Facebook and YouTube channel, and listen to us on Spotify and iHeartRadio, and also our Roku channel called Our World, Hour of Power Network. Thank you all so very, very much for your time listening. And by the way, if you need to reach me, you can reach me at 646-340-7271. Glenn, how can people reach you?
People can reach me at the Sutphin Boulevard Business Improvement, 718-291-2110. And again, thank you so much for Tricia Taitt and being on the show. It was a great conversation, and I know that our listeners got a whole lot of information and a lot of knowledge about their finances.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. You've been listening to Our World, Our World Power, where your news reflects you and your community. Catch you next week.
Thank you.